Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session, No Content, No Business, that we organize together with ClickNL. Thank you. Welcome. This is the third day of VR Days Europe, the 7th edition. And this is actually the first year we're also introducing Immersive Tech Week, which is a B2C approach. Because after a couple of years working in immersive tech, we're coming at a stage that these technologies are getting more and more into the field of the public domain. And this is really a time where we're ahead of, in the phase of a breakthrough of these technologies, where there's a lot of need for extra development, extra research, but also content creation. And I'm really happy that we all have gathered here to look at how we, as an economy in the Netherlands and in Europe, can take a position in this whole new wave of the developments of immersive technologies. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being at VR Days, and I wish you a very good session.
Thank you, Benjamin, for putting everything together. My name is Monique van Dusseldorp. I'm going to be the moderator today of all your sessions in this room. Let me start with some practical things. We are here at Amsterdam Public Library in the middle of a lockdown light. So if you're in the room, spread out a little bit. And also, if you walk through the building, put on your face mask. These are the two rules we would like to have the whole day. We also have our ClickNL guests, because ClickNL is the partner of this event, online. Is it possible to show the Laval virtual world where they're sitting ready to, engage with us? For everybody that's watching this online, welcome as well. Do also ask questions. We have somebody here in the room that is watching what's happening in the chat and is going to let me know. And what I usually ask, is check around who's there online as well. You can see each other after all. All right, we probably are going to see them later on. Oh, it's coming up, it's coming up. No, it's not coming up, later on. No problem at all. Okay, this event takes place, I was here the last 2 days as well, takes place at this extraordinary moment in time. We've had 18 months or more of lockdown across the globe, being forced to be at home, discovering new ways to meet each other and interact with each other. We have a development that goes from the hardware to the software. The whole tech stack for XR is being worked on. And it's not just Facebook and Microsoft and everybody else announcing their own metaverses. It's also Qualcomm and Nvidia doing new chipsets. It's all kinds of hardware companies developing, glasses and other ways to interact with our virtual and real worlds together. It's a combination of developments. It's going from, cloud computing being everywhere to ideas about edge computing. It's going from 5G networks suddenly becoming available in the world to make all this interaction work. It's everything together suggests that we are really looking at something new. And within that new world, what are we going to do with it? What is actually going to help businesses and societies and communities? And this is what this session is about. So, not about the tech as such, it's actually about the content on that tech and also about the tools we need. Now, we're going to invite our first two speakers, Jan de Waal and Jan Wester, to come on stage. Jan de Waal, where are you? Yeah, please join us here. Grab one of those seats and a microphone. Top Team Creative Industries. And Jan Wester, who is, there's a Dutch word for this, kwartiermaker. Kwartiermaker means, ambassador, going out into the world to make things happen for the immersive content activities of ClickNL. Let me first ask you about Jan de Waal, to Jans. Top Team Creative Industries, all about content. How is the Top Team Creative Industry looking at this industry?
Monique, maybe I shall shortly introduce what the top team is actually doing.
Absolutely.
We're part of the Dutch Innovation, Rural Research and Innovation Agenda, a public-private task force. And we kind of initiate and create programs for the creative industries to be part of that enormous infrastructure. So that's from, say, purely fundamental design, fundamental research on design methodologies to creating field labs. So, of course, usually what we do is really push forward the creative power into innovation. And that can be supportive, but it can also be, well, creating our own programs. And I think I don't have to, well, convince this audience the enormous potential of well, the entire spectrum from virtual to mixed media. So I think it's a great moment in time to really, well, say, collaborate and create quite a big program and present that to the Dutch government in order to support that.
It also seems to be, I mean, it's a very Dutch way, I always feel, of doing everything in groups and coalitions and cross-sector initiatives. But for this specific industry, this specific tool set, it seems absolutely necessary as well. I mean, if I look at all the speakers in the last few days as well, they always seem to have both an engineering and a psychology degree, an arts degree plus a computer background. We need these crossovers right now more than ever, right?
Yeah, it's not only about crossovers. I think we already are very, very powerful in this industry, from media, from design, gaming, etc. But it's kind of scattered. Big companies, small companies, and of course, our industry in itself is always crossing over. So that's not the topic. The topic is how do we combine and make a real strong fist in order to make an impact? Because that's, I think, that's where that's our biggest challenge, to scale up and create impact.
And then on the content side, because obviously it's very hard in this big game that's being played when it comes to chips or, you know, global platforms or, you know, the whole engineering. That's not where the Dutch maybe will be leading the pack, right? But maybe in the field of content?
Why not?
Oh, good answer.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, there's so much technology around already. Whether it's in services like AI, or whether new platforms, hardware platforms come up, and of course the biggest challenge is to create value out of all those new technologies. And I think that's actually, well, that's a topic we're quite good at. Whether it's TV formats, whether it's gaming. Of course, we're not that big, and the problem with being scattered is it has its advantages because there are a lot of creative people around, but of course your economic impact is sometimes not as big as you would wish for. So that's our challenge, to combine all those creative powers around here and to create a program that actually can help all those participants to create value. And to add, it's not only economic value, and of course it's aesthetic value, being creatives, but it's of course, in our perspective, also all about societal value. Yeah. And that's also, I think, what this program is about.
Now let's move to Jan Wester, because this is something you will outline as well. You have a few short slides. Let's have a look. All right, you explain. What do we see here? Because you're working on a program to take this whole industry, industries actually, along a ride.
We are in the process of building a program.
Yeah.
And what you see here in the first slide is actually a framework that we're trying to fill, not by ourselves, but together, right? So the main word is interaction. Maybe it's not crossover, but it's interaction. So we need the interaction between the creative industry, ICT sector, with the several domains of application. Because Gartner said, like, the immersive technologies are now mature enough to become productive. So if you want to become productive, you need content, and that's what we're building on. And building through the content, you're building value, right? And the value is indeed not only economic, but also societal value, right? So what we did is that the focus of this program will be on applications. Right.
Just for me, who runs this program? Is it a ClickNL program? It's a Dutch government program?
No, we are now in the process of building a program. And ClickNL has now the lead in getting people together in building the program.
Yeah.
But in the end, ownership of the program will be with the application domains themselves or with the industry themselves. So the people that are involved in the program will take ownership of the program themselves. So
a very clear call to action to get involved.
Yeah, but how the governance will
Yeah.
look like, we're not sure, but it's not like one big program, one big coalition. It will be separate coalitions along the way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the next slide. Just to make sure that we keep this focus on application, we define 4 principles that will keep us on track for this focus. And the first one is that it's not about a technology push, but it's a pull from the needs and from the applications, from the several application domains, right? The second one follows from that, so it's not a creative industry or ICT/ICT industry-centric program. It means that the application domains could well be in the lead of what the program is about, right? And the third one might be interesting is that we would like to make sure that it's not about science looking for sponsors, but it's business looking for knowledge. And this does not mean that there will not be a lot of research in the program. Research, actually, we will kind of follow a sort of reverse TRL, technology readiness level program. So we will start with the technologies that are already there, but the research will also be about, business models. It will also be about the impact it has psychologically or in the behavior of people. How does this impact? How does this,
what kind individual level, group level,
sure.
National level,
so
city level?
It's also the other science. It's multidisciplinary. It's not only technology, but it's also the other disciplines that we need. So it means that we're actually looking from bottom up. What kind of knowledge questions, what kind of research topics will emerge from that, right? And the last one is that we say, okay, we want it to be value-driven. Not only economic, but also societal value-driven. And the next slide will show you what kind of way of working we will see there. So the value process will start from societal challenges, societal missions. And this means that you offer the separate domains something they can put their teeth in, right? They can actually develop and grow on these societal challenges. The societal challenges also offer you a justification for, of course, spending public money, but it will actually also offer the industries, the separate domains, to grow and grow their business and come up with new propositions. And then we will look at the added value that the immersive content and immersive technologies can actually offer to make, well, maybe even be a game changer or whatever, but actually make them successful in the ambitions that these domains themselves have, right? So this is how we would like to...
It's lofty goals and pretty broad as well, and also involving a lot of different industries. But the core is immersive tech. Is that true? Is that what this program is about? Because this basically you could apply to a lot of different things,
it's
right?
Immersive content. So
immersive content.
Yeah.
That's Jan, you wanted to add something there, I think.
Well, it's quite a challenge, of course, because this ambition requires quite a lot of people, quite a lot of budget. But fortunately, with ClickNL, we do have a lot of experience connecting industries, connecting small businesses, connecting universities, researchers, etc. So what we do, we're currently in the phase of really going out there. Janis has talked to a lot of people to see, okay, where's the energy? Who wants to be part of this movement? Kind of bottom-up inventarization. And then, of course, we'll start thinking, okay, how can we address this to the Dutch government in order to get funding? How does it interact with research programming already being
because
conducted?
AI was just also announced as one of those key
Of course,
technologies.
That's actually that's of course the nice and the challenging thing about immersive content. It touches everything.
Yeah.
Right? We have already a lot of data out there, a lot of applications, and now it's about immersive experiences.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, you might be overwhelmed by ambition and by schemes, but you can be part of it, and that's, I think, the value of ClickNL in this case. Experience with creating programs that fit for everybody.
That's the most important message, I think. So what we would like to see is that the 3 balls, we would like them to interact very much. And in the program, so we made a sort of framework that we would like to fill with all of you, right? With all of the participants
here
from the
and
domains
online,
as well as from the creative industry itself. So in the framework, we also defined a couple of cross-cutting themes. And well, for the first one is, for instance, human capital. And in the talks that I had so far with lots of organizations, is that there is a war on talent. There's a shortage of talent. There's a war on talent. So we need to address the education. How can we bring more boys and girls choose to get into this field? The other one is, of course, the R&D topics. I already talked about it. But the ethics, inclusion, and regulation, because it's new. You said it's systemic. It's new. This means that there's also lots of questions about how can we internalize values, normative systems by design into the new solutions that we're developing. And is there already regulation at hand? No, we have to develop this, so we have to better first kind of, see what has the right impact, guidelines, how do they work?
Where's the regulation? Who regulates? Who makes sure that? Where can you go to complain? I mean, it's all new.
Yeah. We also have to strengthen the ecosystem itself, because if there is a growing demand from the application domains, the ecosystem from the VR, AR ecosystem has to be able to take this up also, right, to grow. So we are addressing that as well. And what we are also addressing is there a need for shared facilities? Is there a need for distribution infrastructure? Is there a need also for experimentation possibilities? And given these cross-cutting themes, we are exploring now also the idea whether it might be interesting to have a sort of metaverse of living labs, because you want to dig into the domains, you want to have a connection, and you also want to have an instrument to be able to scale, to disseminate your learnings, and you want to facilitate the interaction. That is,
you don't want a website, you want Second Life. You want something out there that you can go to, right?
Right, yeah.
Well, it is an interesting thing, this internet moving from a place with information to a place with location that you can be at. This whole spatial feeling that you could go somewhere. I mean, there's about a few minutes left, but we have to round up pretty soon. So I want to turn it to the room for questions, and also the online room. Where's my counterpart? Here, yes. No questions so far from online. Now would be the time to ask. There's a short delay when you ask something in Laval, and then it comes here. Anybody with a question? I have to step up here, because otherwise I can't see you guys. Ooh, quiet. Yes, please, go ahead. Mike is coming up. Benjamin will be with you in a second. Yes. Here.
I can shout.
No, but the online audience won't hear you, and then I have to repeat it. And yeah.
Thanks, man.
There you go.
Hello, good morning, everyone. So the question is, immersive technologies have usually been seen as a very technical fields, right? So how do you intend to actually attract creatives and designers or people that might not have the technical background to actually contribute to this initiative?
Well, yeah, the main reason is that we're not trying to focus on the technology itself. I mean, it is part, of course, of this program, but we are trying to focus on content. And this is the field where these people are active. And if you organize the interaction with the application domains, then you will see that these designers, etc., also have to be able to get a good knowledge of the domain of application itself. So this is a challenge, right? This is what we call the T-shaped challenge. You are a creative, but you need to understand the domain that you're, the application domain, and you need to understand the technology that creates the possibilities.
Yeah, and you also have a comment here.
Yeah, I don't think that the separation is that hard, actually. I do see a lot of agencies blurring, having creatives with a technical background and vice versa. And also I think the university, the educations are really blurring into a more generic design education. So I'm quite hopeful to that. The concern I do have is how are you going to integrate the small businesses where those blurring is already available, and more traditional industries. Of course, they have different time, heartbeats, different investment periods, etc. So that's, I think, that's even more important than if there is a challenge, there will be an agency, there will be creatives picking up this challenge. I'm quite convinced about that.
It's a big battle going on for talent, though. And if Facebook announces it's going to get 10,000 Europeans to help build that metaverse, that's 10,000 people that will get paid a lot of money taken away from our industries. I recently talked to somebody working for the public broadcaster in Switzerland. Switzerland has one of the biggest Google, labs there. So he also said, they can make more money there. It's very exciting work they do there. So how do we get our talent? We get them by having purpose. We need to have some explain.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's one of our strongest points. Even also with, for example, the AI Coalition, we were able to put that value-driven, that purpose into the programs. And I think that should be a very important point here as well, because that's specifically what we can add as the Netherlands as well.
Yeah, the societal challenges will help there as well.
All right. We actually don't have time for more questions right now. So, gentlemen...
Could I maybe just elaborate and invite everybody?
Yes, of
join
course.
us, because
the call to action is here.
Yeah.
All right, make it clear. What should people do?
We do want to build this program together, right? So this is most important thing. So what we will do the coming weeks is that we will reach out to you. We will reach out, and we would like to ask you to form coalitions and to think of initiatives. Maybe it's existing initiatives that you would like to have immersive content as a cherry on top, right? But it could also be new initiatives. So we will reach out to you, but we would also like you to come to us if you have any ideas. Maybe it's not fitting the framework. You're welcome. Out of the box is nice as well. So please contact me at jan@clicknl.nl, right?
Right, jan@clicknl.nl. There you are. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. And I hope everybody will actually now think like, whoa, I've got some ideas here, and send them over. So,
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, as already mentioned, the idea behind this program is not to say, okay, here's interesting tech, go use it. No, the idea is work with industries and see what their actually needs are, what they actually can use, and what kind of content or content tech is being developed there. And we have 3 industries present. There are many more, but we have selected 3, or ClickNL has selected 3. Health, the built environment, and media and entertainment. And we're going to start with health. I would like to invite Jaap Bonje and Valentina Lavezzo on stage, please. Yes, mics will be cleaned first because of, making sure we do the things right here. Excellent. Now, as mentioned, it's about content for and coming from industries, how content can change industries. And we're looking at health first, and we have a fantastic 2 people here. It's Jaap Bonje, who's the chief of Department of Surgery at the VU University, the medical center. He's a surgeon himself, also working on the Amsterdam School of Surgery, so very much also on the training side of things. And we have Valentina Lavezzo, who's the team lead for biophysics, which means building models of patients for Philips, which is obviously one of the leading med tech companies in the whole wide world. Jaap, let's start with you. What is the most relevant and interesting and urgent use of this new kind of immersive tech in the health industry? Where do you see options? Positive side first.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. Well, the big crisis in healthcare is not COVID-19, but it's the shortage of healthcare personnel. And we're particularly short of allied healthcare professionals right now. And why? Because we train on the job. We still have the master apprentice system. So we're dependent on the patient volume to train our nurses or our technicians. And our clinical volumes have dropped during COVID, so we could train fewer. And this is creating a huge problem. So we have to move training on the job to training off the job by employing digital learning resources such as VR simulation. And when you look at how many hours it takes to train a surgeon, it takes 30,000 hours. Yeah. Well, it only takes 8,000 hours to train a Chinook helicopter pilot, which is a very difficult helicopter to fly.
Just to make a little bit of a status difference there, helicopter pilot, surgeons.
Yeah. So why is that? Because we train on stage and we don't use VR simulation, although it is available. So we need to go through a paradigm shift because this is a huge crisis. Right now we have 80,000 vacancies in healthcare in the Netherlands. We'll go up to 150,000 next year. So that's over 10% of all the healthcare personnel in the Netherlands. And this will get out of control.
And this is not just surgeons, right? I mean, just for the record,
it's not the surgeons.
Everything around.
It's mostly the support staff, the nurses. So we're applying for a growth fund subsidy to build 4 digital training centers across the country, combined with a small teaching hospital, to truly change the way we train our healthcare professionals.
And before I go to Valentin, this is obviously not. I mean, the human body is pretty similar globally, so I could imagine that in more places in the world people are looking at this. Are there already lots of training VR programs for surgeons and other medical personnel available, or is this field completely empty and has to be developed?
Yeah, the interesting part is that there's a wide abundance of VR, AR training means across the world, but they have not been connected into an integrated curriculum.
Okay.
And so this is a problem with the Western world. When we look at the low and middle income countries, there are 5 billion people with no or very poor access to basic healthcare. Yeah. And we need to train 2 million surgical staff to perform only the most necessary surgeries. So there's a shortage of 143 million surgeries per year. We're never going to solve that with this 30,000 hours, 1 million euros training model. So we need to develop a digital, scalable learning environment to train all those people across the world.
And are the first beginnings of that already there, or is it really like a huge leap we have to take here?
All the elements are there.
Okay.
It's out there. We only need to connect it.
That's actually very positive in that way.
It's very positive, yeah.
Now, Valentina, you work on making healthcare better. You know, it's really the quality of the healthcare. Can you describe what you do at Philips in this field?
Good morning, everyone. What we are looking at Philips is embedding AR, VR into the workflow of clinicians. And you might have seen some of our latest developments. For example, the Clarify, where we help clinicians get better visualizations to actually perform what they need to do. This is developed specifically for surgery, for spine surgery, where you need to understand where to place the screws. And that's where AR, for example, can help them and guide them in performing the work better.
So the very basic level is you have your goggles on, you see more information about
Correct.
the patient in front of you with some instruction maybe, or...
Yes, because down the line, one of the concepts that we have in mind is to what you see here on screen. So it's to the technology...
We can actually play that in the back without the sound, so we can see this...
The technology, it's just an enabler that would provide the clinicians a better way of actually helping the patient that they have in front of them. So here you see that the clinicians can actually, at the same time, look at the patient and have all the information related to it in front of them. And Also, they can interact with what the patient anatomy is and what the vital signs are, and act promptly to whatever they see in front of them.
Yeah.
So this is of course just the first concept, and many steps are needed to reach there. But what we need to keep in mind is that the end customer needs are for us really important. So we need to understand how clinicians are thinking, what they are looking at, how to translate the 2D environment that they are used to the immersive space, and make this possible. Down the line, each patient is unique, right? So we would like to have the patient digital twin also embedded and incorporated in this. So in which AR or VR is just a way of representing the important information related to the patient.
Yeah, because
the most important or most difficult part is that in clinical cases, more is actually less, which means that in entertainment industries, you want the wow factor, right, of the person immersed in the virtual world. Instead, in clinical cases, you want to understand what actually the clinicians want to see, because that's only the information that it's needed to them. They cannot be overloaded with the information, because that will create just the problems.
Now, and to understand correctly the role that Philips plays in this, so the HoloLens you use here, or you're not developing the hardware that is involved here. You already have all the tools and the machines that get information about the patient history, and all those files there. The heart of it is how you then put this content together, and the user interface, and how this actually is part of the workplace in a useful way, right? So it's a content question in the end.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we make use of existing hardware, and we create the content indeed. And that's also one of the challenges, because creating content, it's not always easy. And also to translate whatever we have on the 2D world in a 3D immersive space. That's also one of the challenges. But I think we are getting there. We are making steps in this. But of course, we need to close collaborate with also hardware companies, and because with some applications, you need sub-millimeter precision to have your images visualized on the patient, or plotted on the patient.
I'm looking at the surgeon now. Is this a development already in place in some degree, or is this very new?
To some degree, and particularly in orthopedic surgery. And why? Because the bones are sitting still.
Yeah, yeah.
And that makes it much easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but less complex.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So if we also need, of course, navigation anywhere in surgery. It's interesting. When we start surgery, the patient is completely dependent on the eyes of the surgeon. There's no Google map, nothing. And we've looked at the CT scan before, but we cannot yet show the CT scan on the surgical image. You've shown it, but what's the difficult in abdominal and thoracic surgery? There are pulsations.
Yeah, yeah.
And the patient is breathing, so everything is moving.
Yeah.
And to follow a moving target is very complex. So this is absolutely exciting, the navigation that you described for spine surgery. And we're using that more and more. At the Amsterdam Skill Center, we have a mobile CT. So when the patient is asleep, you do the CT scan, you roll it back, and then you can upload the CT images on the navigation system. And then you can place your screws or your plates in a very precise way. So it's absolutely the way to go.
But it also sounds like this is definitely one of those immersive tech applications that you could only develop together with the people in the field, because there's so many details.
Industry drives innovation, so it's all about partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can add, indeed, that's where it all starts, right? So co-creating with the clinicians, for us, that's the key starting point. Because that's only by doing this that you can also generate the right application that fulfills their needs.
Now, I'm completely not from the field of healthcare, but from the field of innovation and internet conferences and so forth. And it strikes me that there's always a few people within hospitals who love this, right? Who are in the forefront. I mean, I even know some names of surgeons working in this field, Tristan van Doormalen, Marlies Schijven. How important are those individual heroes to take a whole field along? Or is it more a systemic thing? We really have to build education systems and so forth. I mean, there's a little bit of the wizard and the system there, right?
Yeah, well, the individuals are of course important, but the partnership between the public and the private industry is even more important. Here in the Netherlands, we were quite standoffish when it came to working together with industry partners. That fortunately is changing, but it has to change more. Okay. And then we need a system where we can try it out, where we can implement it. And then large hospitals tend to be rather rigorous and rigid. So we need smaller innovation centers where we can more easily apply these new techniques. And those innovation centers can be combined with these 4 training digital centers I just mentioned before.
Now, the way I hear it, we have something that could really be internationally totally relevant, because we already have Philips, we have a vision from you and other people in the industry. Let's imagine resources are endless. What is the one thing you would want to do or happen right now to really take this whole field forward? What is the one thing that you need?
What we need is collaboration. We need a national, international collaboration between healthcare organizations and the medtech industry, between the technical universities. That's all we need. Just sitting down.
That doesn't sound undoable, to be honest.
No. And I think we're making positive progress. In 2 hours, I'm talking to Ernst Kuipers at Erasmus MC, who is also very much behind it. UMC Utrecht is behind it. Philips is behind it, and other partners.
Okay, fantastic. What would you say for your particular field is digital twin patient development? What in that area could really make a big difference and make the Netherlands, the leading place where all this happens?
Well, I would embrace the same. So collaboration is the key, but also collaboration with ethical and privacy regulations and regulatory bodies. That's also key, because we need to preserve the privacy of our patients. But at the same time, we would like to have smarter applications, right, that collect also the information from patients. And this should be done in the privacy compliant manner.
Let's go. You need surgery. You want the absolute best surgeon there is, obviously. So will eventually it be like, okay, this is a VR-trained surgeon, be a mark of, done more hours, has done better? Because it's a qualification issue as well, right?
Absolutely. And right now, every 5 years, you have to re-register as a surgeon. What you need is the signature from your CEO, and you need CME points, continuous medical education points. You collect those points by signing up for a congress.
Yeah, that's why we have these huge surgeon conferences in the RAI sometimes, right? The whole world comes together to get their points.
If you're a pilot, every 6 months you've got to go to Schiphol-Oost to sit in the simulator. You get tested. That's where we will go for healthcare professionals within 5 to 10 years. But then we first need reproducible VR simulation, because so much is dependent on that test on the simulator.
Okay, so
that's where we're going.
That's new thing. That's the training, but also the keeping up-to-date part could all be done. And it also can be done online, right? You don't have to go to that test center in the end. You couldn't train all the African surgeons. Yeah.
So developing the simulation for training also means developing the simulation for accreditation.
Yeah, and getting it accredited as well. Yeah. That's big steps, but important steps. All right, we have, let me see, 5 more minutes. So questions from the audience or questions from our online audience. If there are, now would be the time. And I know there's a lot of people in this audience that are super well informed about what tech is there and will bring. Okay, we've got a question here in the middle.
Yes, there's a microphone here.
Yes. Maybe you could hand it over. That means, 6 people touching the same microphone. Okay, I'll ignore it. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Mika Uitto from Lapland University of Applied Sciences. Are these solutions going to be OpenXR or open solutions, or do we buy them?
Yeah. OpenXR is also the standards, and open source is basically the bigger question behind it, right? I mean, how much of this is going to be shareable across the industry, and how much will be proprietary? I mean, sometimes things need to be proprietary to attract enough money to be able to make money of them. What is the consideration here?
That's a vital issue that you raise. What happens now is that small commercial companies come to medical professionals, ask them for their knowledge, then develop a product and sell the product.
Yeah.
And what we're in for in healthcare is open access. So of course that company needs to make a profit to stay alive, but we have to marry the two so that our students in the Western world, but also in other countries in the world, can have access to that content.
Yeah.
So that is complex, but it can be worked out, and this is very often a stopping stone in this whole process.
Yeah, and the very, OpenXR, the very standards question, is part of the bigger question how things get shared around. And how is this for Philips? Because obviously Philips shareholders value other considerations than just saving everybody.
Well, it really depends on the use case and the application that we are building. Normally, of course, what we build is proprietary. But there are occasions in which, for example, we are collaborating with the European partners in European calls, and there things might be also open. So it really depends.
Open answer here. Okay, we have time for one. Is there a question from our online audience? Look, here they are. They're watching us. Yeah. Oh, you can even wave. Somebody in the back knows how to wave. I mean, these rules are so difficult always. You have to, Some people don't know how to sit. Do you see that? Yeah. All right. If we have one more last question from the room, I'll take it. Let me see if there is. Who wants to ask a question here? All right, then. There's one here. Roger.
One more question. And Monique, I can tell you, we have a clean microphone here.
Oh, look.
We wipe them.
Wipes forever.
Hi, Roger Heide, Improv. How do you see training also expanding to nurses or assistants? Because at the moment we have a shortage of them for ICU, but how do you see that integral in the whole approach?
So you're asking how much time it's going to take?
But do you see the same sort of training also being available for nurses? Because it's a different kind of infection, maybe?
All the way, the way. Yeah, absolutely. So this is not only for surgeons. As a matter of fact, we have an excess number of orthopedic surgeons and general surgeons right now in the Netherlands, also internists and cardiologists. So our big problem is allied healthcare professionals. Yeah. And we need to train much more in a multidisciplinary fashion than we've done so far. We've trained completely isolated universities. Yeah.
I can also imagine that once you have this online training available, that it could lead to an influx of unexpected talent as well, right?
Absolutely.
Because people will start using it from different countries with different backgrounds, with not from a traditional doctor's family, but from anywhere to try this out and then make more steps than they ever thought were possible, right? Yeah.
And I think also for nurses, you need to adapt the content. So that's also some aspect that needs to be taken into consideration. Yeah, so the nurse most probably will need a different content than the surgeon with that might need haptic feedback. While
so you need digital twins appearances for depending on
right.
Which.
So the digital twin in itself should have different appearances depending on who's watching it.
And also that also means I'm the patient here. As a patient, I will need to sign off on my privacy, who gets to see what as well, right?
Certainly.
Yeah. So not everybody could see my digital twin and know everything about me inside and out. There you
indeed.
go.
Patients are in control of their data.
Yeah.
That's key.
There's big questions actually around this topic. I mean, one last thing to round up. I mean, we've discussed a lot about the existing tech. Philips is working on the digital twin, which is relatively new. what is the new thing that's coming up where you feel like, we have to look into this? Is that more sensors? Is it other kinds of interactions? What's the new tech? I'm just curious. Or is this quite enough already to deal with? It's a lot, huh? Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of talk about robotics. All the surgical robots are not robots. They're master-slave systems. The main advantage of a robotic system is the digital interface, which allows us to augment reality during the surgery. Yeah. So I think one of the hottest domains is preoperative planning. So using the CT images, put those in a simulator so you can train the particular case before you do the live case, and then intraoperative navigation.
Yeah. So it's the training before for the individual patient. Just practicing on the individual patient before they even are on.
You can upload those CT images or MRI images in a simulator, and who are already doing this? The dentists. Dentistry is ahead of medicine.
I once saw, it was a startup from France who actually made, based on the CT scans, they made 3D printed brains so that the brain surgeons could already just put them in their hands and look around and see it.
So
just make it physical.
When you have the 3D print of the liver with a tumor in it, if you can feel it as a surgeon, if you can feel around it, then it's easier for the brain to realize where the tumor is. So the tactile sensations are also important for...
Exactly. So those digital twins might result in tactile, real, printed out things you feel, so that your brain understands it better. Interesting. What about your field? What's the most interesting new tech thing that's happening there?
Well, one thing that came to my mind is also remote collaboration. We as Philips, maybe you know, we have also acquired the Reacts and Collaborative Live. So where remote collaboration is also key. So you want part maybe of the training session to have someone with more experience looking over the shoulder of the less experienced person. And therefore, sharing the information over the internet or maybe even 5G. That's also connectivity. I would say that's also one of the topics that is
not
key
visual connection.
in this
it's very often audio connection as well. Like somebody's whispering to you, watch, ticker.
It involves audio connection, image connection, camera, because you want to see whatever the other person is seeing in front of him.
Every industry is a media industry almost, right? Connecting everything together. Super interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, how to move forward, what skills, how to match needs. We're going to look at a totally different industry, the built environment. And I would like to invite Otto Schepers and Ren Yi to the stage. And I think we have a bit of cleaning of mics coming up. Yes, somebody's running. All right, Otto, Ren, welcome. Pick your chair. Let me see if... the mysterious... Maybe he has wipes. There you go. Yeah. There you go. We want to be careful here. I mean, we missed several speakers of this event as well. And even in my small network of people, I had 3 people who got COVID-19 despite 2 vaccinations. So let's be really careful here. All right. Otto and Ren. Otto Schepers, he works at Witteveen and Bos. Now, I'm not a specialist in built environment. I read up on this. 23 offices in 11 countries and 1,300 engineers working on the built environment. But he's also here because he's chair of the Association for Infra Design, and maybe even more importantly, he works for the Council for Digital Building. We were looking for the translation earlier on, which basically pulls together the whole construction industry and looks at what can be digitized and how, and what this means for the industry. And then next to him, Ren Yi, who's the Director of Design and Strategy at UN Sense. Now, UN Sense is the innovation lab connected to and of UN Studio, which is the architect firm. Ben van Berkel and Caroline Bos founded this many years ago. It has offices in Amsterdam, Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Frankfurt, and has 300 staff, and is obviously, as an architect firm, working on the built environment. Here as well, there's so many interesting things happening. But let's just start. What do you do right now? Not future, but what do you do right now that is immersive tech? How do you use it? How is it being used already? Maybe we can start with Otto.
Yeah, well, I brought two examples of what.
Yeah. Let's have
right
let's have him
now.
on stage right away.
So
exactly.
the first one is that we build participation platforms because we're designing projects in your back garden. So we use technologies to build participation platforms to ask the stakeholders, the people, what do you think of this project? What are your concerns? Do you have suggestions for us? And of course, this is just 2D and internet, but then there are points of interest. And at the points of interest, we build these virtual reality models to let people experience what the project is looking like in their own backyard. We do this like this. So that's what we do at the moment to include people who are not an engineer and don't know what an engineering drawing is. To have a good experience about the things happening in their back garden.
And just very practically, how do you do this? Because as an engineer, you build the maps and the drawings and the data points. How is it generated into a 3D image?
Well, the interesting thing is that we're already designing in 3D and digital for years. For 10 years, 15 years, there's nobody coming out of the university not working digital. So the only thing we did about 5 years ago is transforming our digital models to the gaming technology.
Yeah. So you match to an existing technology so that everybody could just look
and then we
around.
blend it with material from the surroundings, so satellite images or this kind of stuff to get this immersive content. Yeah. And there's another maybe another
let's
example.
look at the second one as well.
This is more for the experienced people in the project. It's for operators. This is an example of a tunnel, and this tunnel has to be built. And it's not built yet, it's only a design. But yet in this design phase, we ask operators, how does this look like? Can you operate this tunnel? And we connect this digital twin with the physical operating desk, so we can test and train the operator's functionality in the design phase. And not only the operator, but also the fire brigades. Can they reach you when you're in a burning tunnel? And we can simulate this in a design phase, which is far more optimal than we were used to.
And of course, this does, here, it's even more important that this interaction is mimicking real life, right? I mean, this cannot be just visually interesting, and here it really has to. I mean, what is the danger that it works in the digital world but not in the real world? Where's the match between the two?
Well, the match is that there are validated engineering models behind it. So when we model smoke or fire, for instance, we do have these fire simulators. Then it's not like Disney visualizing a fire.
Yeah.
No, it's a validated engineering model. And well, I've seen these models, and I was really afraid after seeing such a model of a burning metro. So when you're ever in a metro station and you see smoke, don't think about anything else than just run and go to the stairs and get away, because it will take only 1 minute and then you can't see anything.
Oh, well good to know. But really, what you say also implies that from the engineering world, there are a lot of validated interaction models that you could easily pull into a virtual world to make it clearer, more visible. And this could actually also be important to other virtual worlds, right? This is very specific. But so what other models are there? I mean, there's fire and smoke.
Fire, sound. So a lot about nuisance of traffic. There are a lot of models. Also smell, but it's very difficult. So there's maybe something for the creative people.
Yeah.
How to simulate smell. We have noses at the company, so real physical noses to smell things. But we need this in the models also. So there are a lot of models. Yeah. Traffic.
But it's a wonderful thing that they're already there. We're building on an engineering layer that's already existent.
Yeah. So the true interesting thing is that we have a digital world all over the place in our design phase, And then in a normal world, we go to you, and then we smash everything together in a 2D plan. We bring it to the government, and the government will bring you some paper and say, this is what they're going to do. And you don't understand anything about it in the paper. So we have such a rich content at our offices. We can show to the people, but we need these immersive technologies to translate all this content to the people.
And by the sound of it, also the intermediary, in this case the government, to be able to transport from one to the other. Let's move to Ren as well. What do you do? I mean, we know you in the sense that you build beautiful stuff. This is, well, virtual Singapore. There we go, right away. Tell us about it.
So maybe before I go to what we do for the audience, it was quite interesting to look at the healthcare industry, because it's about the body. And it's very complex systems. But you talk about city, is also equally complex, even if not more complex, because it has not only the physical, measurable, but also the immeasurable social well-being and everything, part of the system. So in the industry right now, in the built environment, this is an example I brought forward before I speak about ours. This is virtual Singapore. So everyone talks about virtual reality, everyone talks about mimicking a digital, a real world into a digital realm, and then from there start to create simulation, to create understanding of what is our city looking like, and then taking to the next step, what is the impact of the city that we have built over time. So this is one example, very expensive example, as we talk about proprietary and open source. This is something that Singapore paid 73 million to create this model, and it's still ongoing. It started in 2018 and is one of the most forefront city or country that says we are committing to it, we want to try it. What is interesting in this model is that I think we have also shown our own example. In this model, they want to talk about test bedding. So if you're going to try a new system, for example, a new metro system, one example I want to highlight is that they're talking about development, densification. One of the big city problems is that there's not enough space for residential. So they say, in Singapore especially, so they say if we're going to start to create a dense city, a dense development with 5 high-rise, what is going to be the impact on mobility? This is a very valid question. So one of the things they simulate here is that if you put in the density of these people, they start to simulate movement. How often is a peak, going to work, going away from work, and how is the traffic system, the transportation system, keeping up to it?
But I can imagine, is this, I mean, it's a huge project to, you know, combine all the buildings and the systems and the potential moves of people into a computer model, I mean, a digital twin of the city. There are some validated cases like the smoker, so that you can use as an engineer when you know where to find them as well. But it also suggests that for those new digital twins, there's also a lot we might not know yet, right? I mean, we cannot already have a digital twin that actually really mimics what would happen in the real world.
Absolutely right. But the trend is that data wealth is going deeper and deeper. And there's not only tangible engineering data. There are also many other data. Impact on well-being is one of the interesting data. There are new indexes that comes out to measure the happiness of people. What is the health of the household, for example. They are not direct causality to the model, but then the model becomes trained much more complicated to understand what is the implication.
So it is a self-learning model that Singapore is building that can keep pulling in new kinds of data and really maybe for now just observing what is happening in the city.
This is the idea, to go towards self-learning, but I think at the moment right now what we want and what the technology is, we're still closing that gap.
Yeah. Now we already see the slide here.
Yes.
You are doing something special in that field.
Yeah.
Spaceform. Tell us about Spaceform. What is it and how do you use it?
So digital twin is one thing to simulate what is the implication. It's also a process. I think the process here, as we also talk about, is extremely important. And what we do in design world is that we design, as also Otto said, many decades already with digital. We work with engineer, creating simulation, but the process of the communication process is lagging. So what we're doing here right now is a partnership with Screen Opera and also Epic Games. So we use the Epic Games Unreal Engine to create a model, a platform, a communicative platform that we could use to communicate not only with our client, but also stakeholders. Stakeholders here means future residents, maybe people of small businesses and so on.
So this is one platform to both work with everybody in the construction industry and all your partners and suppliers and so forth, as well as with the audience. Not two different ones like Otto just showed, but the same one.
Yeah, this is the potential of it. So once we have created a model with an interface that actually can be used for our design team, we can start to encroach and open the dialogue. The dialogue not only to the owner, but also to the people who are living, the neighbors, for example. What are the impact of these in discussion? Because in our process, in our field right now, when we start with the early development, the dialogue of municipalities start to involve everyone else. Processes are changing, and this is also quite interesting because people think that designing a city is for long term. The stakes are high. Yeah. So we have to understand what is the impact of our design before we commit to something that will be there for 10, 20, even 30, 50 years. Yeah. So therefore, the process is changing. People are bringing more people on the table. Processes are bringing more people on the table. And therefore, these type of communication platform will slowly become, I think, the norm for other big developments as well.
Okay. And also, you mentioned before we had a quick chat about this as well. It's not just building cities and being aware of the future. There's something specific happening right now, which is we have to have more sustainable cities. We have cities that will be underwater soon if we don't do anything. I mean, the urgency right now is bigger than it was before, right? It's not just like make a beautiful city. It's more than that.
Yeah, it truly is. Looking at the Netherlands, we have a lot of transitions coming on, and you all know them. It's like the energy transition, it's mobility transitions, but sustainable. For instance, we need to build 1 million houses in the Netherlands within the next coming years, and everybody now is complaining why we don't hurry up. Secondly, 8 million buildings have to be made more sustainable in the coming years. Well, and then we have like 10,000s of bridges, not collapsing at the moment, but they're at end of lifetime. So there are a lot of things we have to do. Climate change, we have to hire the dikes, we have to do everything, and we don't have much time for it. So we have to transform the built environment in a much faster pace than we were used to. But it's not like designing something on a white paper. Now you're living there. So we're building in your back garden, and everybody is in favor of all these transitions. Just till the point that we are saying, okay, we're going to do it in your backyard. Then it's no, not in my backyard. So we need to do it more inclusive with the people. And the first step is to include them in this participation process so they can experience it. The second step is to include them in a design process, and Ren also had something about with Spaceform. And the third step is maybe the most difficult step, and it's the interesting part also for new disciplines. It's about how to decide what to do, because there are shortages. There's a shortage of money, there's a shortage of space, there's a shortage of everything. We can't build for everybody all of their wishes. So it's a democratic process in the public field, to decide whether to build the tunnel or the bridge or whatever. But these processes, we need to digitize these processes as well to be faster. And it's a total new perspective. We didn't look for it, and we need also new people, new disciplines, and universities to tackle this problem.
It's interesting because Singapore probably has a very different way of deciding on things. Here we want everybody involved in a way or other, but in both cases, you want to make sure that everybody feels what's going to happen, right? It does have also a very emotional aspect.
Maybe it's more extreme, because we don't engineer for the government. We engineer for you as an end user. So it would be the perfect situation where everybody has his own IKEA kitchen planner, but then for the living environment.
I don't know if I want that, but go ahead. Have you tried it? No, go ahead.
How cool it would be that people could design their own living environment and have the government as a stakeholder in the process instead of the other way around. That's what we're aiming for.
Oh, that's interesting. Really interesting thought. Also, it was already mentioned a little bit. So there's the engineers have lots of proven systems worked out. They have the visualization actually to effect. But we need game engines or other. I mean, it's interesting that you all know Niantic, right? Pokemon Go. I mean, the backstory of that is so interesting because the guy that founded that, John Hanke, I mean, they just, I'm sure this is why you release it, they just released a new SDK, which basically means you can augment anything in the whole wide world with their SDK, with a developer kit. And John Hanke used to be at Google because he founded this company Keel. He was one of the first ones to realize that the local data of everything, every place on Earth is really valuable. So he ran Google Earth, Google Maps, Street View before he founded this company. It's not, you think, oh, game company. It's not a game company. This is a master plan company, right? Why did you bring in the slide?
Just to also talk about the complexity of designing cities. The slide before, Spaceform, another reason why we did that is because as a design process, it's a very collaborative process and we work internationally. So when pandemic hit, we tend to fly down, talking about carbon footprint. We fly down and meet the client, meet the whole engineers. It's a full process over the course of many years. So the process really matters. So now when pandemic hit, all of a sudden we realized that there are not enough good tools that we can create a smooth dialogue. You can't just send drawings anymore. You need to create collapse the process. You need to bring implication. What is the implication of the project process right now? So people tend to see, and therefore decisions are made differently. So information are packaged correctly, put in a real way that you can make good decision. So this is what we did with the Spaceform. And now if you take one step forward, so this is a process that we designed with our client, potentially with the residents, but now cities are also taking into the bandwagon, jumping into the bandwagon. This is an example that I want to bring up. Seoul City from South Korea has just announced a couple of days ago that they're stepping into creating Seoul Metaverse, what they call the Metaverse 120 Center. And what they want to do is that they say, with a pandemic right now, there are civil services that they want to provide to people. You cannot come to us. You want to get consultation. You want to go run through process. But they want to make it very intuitive. So they're talking about widening the demographic. So if you just have to don a virtual reality, everything should be intuitive. Then you can start to carry about your consultation, applying for permit, getting information about anything about that the Seoul City is responsible for. So they are stepping one step into it. And Metaverse, as the audience know here, is the next universe. That's why Facebook changed the word to Meta. Because the next step is that there are going to be a real hybrid of living in the city, both digital and physical. So there will be more and more life carry on seamlessly from your online shopping to checking your carbon footprint to getting some application from some credit, some carbon credit, for example. So these lines are going to blur more and more. So cities are now taking steps into it and say, how can we start to create a balance between a metaverse and the physical world? Yeah. And the engine behind this is of course, in this case, is a game engine. But simulation and data, collection of data, is something that we don't see, but has the major impact. So the next step is that how are we going to put forward the proper information to make real decision? Because you can't just see something from increasing the width of the traffic, for example. There are many other implications once you increase the width of the traffic. There are sound implication, there are air quality implication, there are mobility movement restrictions, and so on and so forth. So these data from the behind, I think, is going to be the next step. So it's look at it from a metaverse.
And I tried to read up on this. It's super interesting also in the data. You mentioned Soud, this company in Amsterdam, Geodan, who basically, based on the whole map of the Netherlands, have algorithmically calculated the sound level, so you can, as an engineer, already test with the sound, right? And these are the data sets out there that are wonderfully complex and realistic that you can actually use, that so far were outside of the reach of we as citizens, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you talk about content, we were discussing about content creation and bringing in the creative industry, I think there's a merger between that. Because the data sets that is based off the content is very highly technical. You need to bring in creative, you need to bring in specialists to pair the right information in a different way to look at different decision making. Yeah. One of the important things that designers we are looking at is designing with a 7th generation ahead. So no longer just designing what you see right now, what is the impact for this generation. You need to know what's going to happen after the 7th generation. So that makes it even more complex to design for a good city. Therefore, pairing the right information, making right decision along the way, but also designing strategy, and digital twin allows you to do that. They allow you to look at the impact after 1 year, after 2 years. So what should you change? What information did we miss, and so on. So it's a constant, complex process that I think you need more and more participation built into the process itself.
Okay, now I asked too many questions, I realize. Already a few minutes beyond time. Is there any really urgent question from the audience? Now's the time. Then I'll ask that one. No? Okay. We have to round up here. If you consider, I mean, if you think, okay, the content part of this, the visual part of this, the emotional, creative part of this is something that maybe we in the Netherlands could be really, really good at. What would need to happen? What's the next step we need to take? Or is this actually happening as we speak? And things are happening as we speak, that's for sure. Otto?
Yeah, there's happening a lot. So I think the thing we need to accelerate this is just to give the perspective. We need to tell this, well, to the people, and not only to the people within the domains, but to our governments, to everybody involved, to see what the perspective is, what the possibilities are, and then it will accelerate. And already by now, I heard that one of our big software companies we're working with is Autodesk. It's one of the biggest engineering firms in the world, engineering software firms in the world, and in the US. Now they're looking and they say over there, what the F is happening in Holland? Because there's happening so much in digital engineering. We're in the front runners in the Netherlands. Yeah.
I'd love to hear that. Yeah, and what about from you? I mean, there was a question actually. What is the biggest challenge which can't be solved right now? It's not a short answer probably, but I'll just throw it in before we round up this part of the program.
This question?
Well, or what do you feel needs to happen to solve? Yeah.
I think a lot of things indeed is happening, and one thing that because I practice, I'm not Dutch. I practice in a lot of country, and what I realize is that the Dutch are very open with their redesigning of the process. So in this case, they bring in different tools. So for example, designing with the neighbors, then they start to bring in anything that they can find open source or proprietary systems, and they're willing to try and see where it goes. And every project that we go working with municipality or developers, they are really open with that. So that's already happening.
Okay,
what
good.
I think needs to happen more is that these tools needs to be shared, and these tools needs to be given a test for the public. So it's a little bit of a beta testing, for example. Involve people to come in and say, Amsterdam is doing this, try it out. And with that, you are sharing more the tools, but you're also sharing the idea of designing things differently. So allow for more public participation. And I think that needs a little bit of a push. But I think the Dutch is doing quite well, I have to say.
We love hearing that. Okay. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving to our last little block, which is media and entertainment. So I would like to invite Rob, Natasha, and Marco to join us on stage. And after the mics have been cleaned, of course. Because that's possibly the first area people think of when you talk about immersive tech. You know, VR, things, things to see, Facebook, entertainment. Where obviously we could very, very seriously argue that the big push is coming from industries and societal needs and not from our endless wish to entertain ourselves. But the lessons learned within the media and entertainment industry are actually super interesting, because that's where the new platforms are born, that's where the new tools are being developed. Now, let me introduce our three speakers in one little second. Yeah? Okay, Rob, you the first one. Tiled Media, a company that came out of a university TNO research project and that now works on really, really big international entertainment projects. Could you, in 2 sentences, say what you do? So we first do a quick round of introduction. What does Tiled Media do? What is it?
Yeah, we do extremely hardcore digital media distribution. In this case, VR distribution at very high quality. And we do this for the Premier League with Sky and British Telecom. We do it for the Olympic Games upcoming in Beijing. Maybe some of you have heard of Stageverse, which launched recently with the Muse concert. The video technology behind Stageverse is also ours.
Okay, so Dutch company doing the Olympics and Sky and Stageverse. Super interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Natasha Paulsen of 40R Studios. What do you do? I know, but they don't.
So we create digital humans, but using volumetric video. So it's really lifelike and you can't actually see the difference between a live person and a video person in 3D.
Yeah, and if you want to do, have a volumetric video recorded in the Netherlands, you have to go to Natasha. That's it. I mean, in fact, international people come to the Netherlands to record at your studio as well.
Yeah. There are a couple of other studios in the world, but we have the best quality, of course. No, but what we also have is the most experience. So over the last 2 years, we did a research program called Chronosphere, where we were able to test for 20 different application markets what volumetric could mean for them. And we found out there that some are already ready to use this new technology, and some still have some homework to do before they can actually use it to their
So
benefit.
that means Discovery and all kinds of TV channels come by and so forth. Talk about more on that later. And then Marco van der El, Director Business Growth at NEP. What does NEP do, and what do you do at NEP?
It's a quite big company at the moment. It's a broadcast facilitator. So we facilitate all the Olympics, for example. But in Holland, we do about 70% of the entire broadcast market. We facilitate all the studios, but also all the platforms. And worldwide, we do a lot of for big studios, for Netflix, things like that. So it's all technology and video based.
Yeah, and it's now part of a big international company. Yeah. And you're probably going to be part of an international company someday soon as well, and Natasha might be as well. But this particular media tech that we're developing in the Netherlands, we seem to be pretty good at it, right? It's not for no reason that all the media tech companies in the broadcasting sphere have now been picked up by international companies.
Absolutely. We are quite a small company, country, sorry.
Yeah, not small company, it's a huge company.
It's a huge company, but we started in Holland. We really had to produce really innovative to stay on top. So small budget, big reach. So we're doing like, if you compare it to The Voice, we do an entire season for the same budget as they do in America for one episode. So it's all technology driven. So workforce is really expensive and everything. We said what we can technologize, we did. So, and this is the next step for NAP as well, where we say, okay, we have a great product. We're like 6 to 7 years ahead of technology workflow in broadcast industry. So what we're doing is saying, okay, let's create 3 or 4 big hubs worldwide, and let's use all the things we learned here in Holland to do that for the entire world.
Now, we have a few slides. I think the first one we have is a QR code. Now, you don't have to do this right now, but if you want to see me as a volumetric video, this is where you go. And this was recorded in Natasha's studio. It's just if you want to have an idea of what that means, volumetric video. Natasha, tell us what areas is volumetric video being applied in right now, and where is it going? But first, right now, where can you use it? What is really useful?
The Chronosphere program I talked about before is learned us. There are 4 application areas that are really, really ready to start rolling this out. One is living history, so making history come back to life. Another one is entertainment, and entertainment then is like really broad, music, sports, all entertainment. And another one is fashion, and we didn't think of that at first, but when you do think about it, it's like fashion is all about fabrics and materials moving on your body, and they are really hard to digitize, especially if it's something that you will want to actually wear later on. I mean, if it's completely digital, then it's fine. So that's one thing that we can work with in volumetric video. And the last one is training, and then training specifically on skill, behavior stuff. So, for example, safety trainings in the physical building environment, or health and psychotherapy, anxiety therapies, that kind of stuff.
So how would that training work? You would enter a virtual world, 2D or 3D?
A virtual world or an
not,
augmented world. I mean, from a content part, I don't care.
Yeah.
It could be anything, but we have this digital content, and somehow there will be a way to get it to the people. And yeah, then it can be anything. It will be virtual people around whenever you need them. So whether it's a public service or whether it's you are in this, I don't know, any kind of appliance store where there's nobody available. Could be any brand currently. And there will be people available there. So the way they come to us, that's technology. We don't care, it will be solved. We have, lots of people working on that. But we need to think about what are these virtual beings going to be? How will we face them? What rights do virtual beings have at the table? I don't know. So we have to start thinking about that and making sure that we know how we are going to deal with this world.
Now, so you say we have to explore all the use cases and all the regulations and problems that might arise, but also interesting new uses we haven't thought of yet. The use case right now is you get recorded and you can, play with the video because it's volumetric, so you can do all angles, but it still needs some time to render. Next step probably is that this is going to be live, right? I mean, that wherever you are, whatever network you're on.
Yeah, so this is actually one of the results of the program that we had, is that when we started, it took 24 hours to get 1 minute of volumetric video. Now, after 2 years, we are down to only a couple of hours, but we can do much faster. And you will see that, within a very limited amount of time, we will be able to do it near live. Yeah. And we will be able to edit volumetric video as well. So these are all things that come out of just one program. Yeah. So if you're talking about how are we going to help the world make more use of the metaverse, then this type of program is actually like what Klikkenel was discussing at the very beginning, but then in a very focus on only one technology. But that worked really well, and I think the entire world is just jealous that we had such a program and that we have so much experience using this, one small technology. And like the metaverse is like maybe 10, 20 new technologies coming
Together and focusing on one and then exploring makes perfect sense. Marco, I think you have some slides as well, so let's have a look. The next slide, please. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
This is.
Tell us what we see.
This is what happened a few months after COVID. A big part of our company focuses on live events. ASML is a customer of us who does every year a big technology conference near live in the Brabanthallen. COVID happened and they said, okay, we really want to have the technology conference happening. So they asked us, hey guys, can we virtualize this? So we said, never done this before. Thank God there's a company within Hilversum called Media Monks, and we work a lot with them. And we asked them, hey, let's combine our joint resources. We have the technology. You guys have the digital interface and knowledge of how to interact digitally. And we built a platform combining our AR studios with a virtual platform with all the broadcast knowledge we have. So it was a 2-day event with 9 stages. It was almost like a small broadcast station during those 2 days with hundreds of speakers and fully interactive. And this was our start of our virtual tour. So.
Yeah. I once hosted that event when it was in Eindhoven. It's amazing because there's actually 6,000 people across the world actually watching. This is the yearly event where ASML tells all the engineers and all the people where we are at in technology. So it's a super interesting event. The specialty is that you combine the AR with the creativity and the design qualities that Media brings into this space, right? Which is all about interaction and how to deal with all those audience out there.
Yeah, we really tried to create one world where we said, okay, you have to have live speakers. So we placed them in an AR world with the same look and feel as the digital world. The digital platform was, in this case, 3GL. So it was a sort of intuitive, moving 3D, flat 3D world. But for the participants, there was a really good flow between the live world and the virtual world. So it was all about sharing the content and sharing the knowledge. So
So there's a company that does media tech in the heart of the broadcasting industry, plus a company that is specialized in, tech innovation across industries, especially online. Combining this, I think you had 2 more slides. Let's have a look at them. Yeah.
There was a follow-up 1 year later, and we got the Climate Adaptation Summit. And one of the key things was security, of course, because it was with all the big speakers, and but also about inclusivity. So we created an entire adaptive platform where you can, depending on your bandwidth, if you were in Africa or what other country within, there was a flow that it was always available. So
yeah.
But this is...
so it could be just audio, could be low-rate video, it could be the complete virtual world, anything. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how in these 18 months, I mean, it's been a terrible 18 months, seriously. And I'm from the event industry, it's been terrible. But it's also been super creative and things have sped up in a way that was pretty impressive. I think you have one last slide, and then we have a slide for... Oh yeah, this is the Dutch university, right?
Well, this is another
the University
project
of the Netherlands,
where we see, okay, we are combining technology within the broadcast industry. The University of the Netherlands came to us, the founders of the university said, okay, it was 5 years ago, where they said, okay, we want to have a solution, a virtual classroom. If you have a learning journey from A to Z, a specific part, why do you have to do it physically? Can we solve this problem by doing it virtually? We said, okay, we have the technology where we can create a presentation room where you as a speaker or a teacher can enter fully intuitive and interact with your students or your corporate training or whatever. So the entire idea is we have the technology within our company, within the industry, and just combine it with all the other the didactics, with all the 5-phase models, all the things you need to have a great experience instead of a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting where you try to interact with people.
And I think we also have a slide for Rob. Let's see if it comes up.
I think we have a little video.
Yeah.
I hope it comes with sound.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look so that we have a better idea of what is going on here.
It's a Sky promotion video. Somebody needs to click start.
Oh, yes.
So there's no sound.
Right, let's do this. Live football on a Sunday in VR. Yes, please. That is very cool. Vardy?
Vardy!
Yes, of course.
And that's the full set now.
It's just incredible. Not only can I just sit at home on a Sunday, feel like I'm actually at a football ground, but then I can take my pick of the Sky Sports channels as well. Wow, you lucky Sky VIP customers.
Now, as we mentioned before, I mean, you do this for Sky, you do this for the Olympics, but you need these are mass media events, and then of that mass audience, only a very small sliver of the audience will be able to experience this, right? I mean, it's
currently, yes.
Yeah.
And it's gone much slower than we had hoped, like 5 years ago when we started to conceive our company. There were these, I think most people in the room here will know these amazing projections of how VR was going to grow, and they haven't come true. But it's still growing, so they will come true, but not at the pace that was originally hoped. But what you see here is that Sky is building this, they call it Sky Worlds, and it's a virtual environment in which you can go to a football game, you can go to, we have done netball, which is sort of korfbal, but for the English. And we're doing cricket as well. And but there's also all the 12 television channels that Sky has. They have 12 sports channels, they're all in there, plus Sky Arts. And also there's cinema night. But what's interesting is that it's not just, you can't just go into your headset and be in a virtual world, it's social. In the sense that you can meet your friends there. It's like here in the virtual Laval world.
It's like a co-viewing experience
Yes.
in VR. Yeah.
So what we do is we empower the high quality. That's here. It's for the techies here. It's 8K VR, and we also keep everybody in sync because you don't want to see the goal after your friend has seen it and started cheering. So
yeah, no, but it's actually important, because what you do is being applied in the entertainment industry. But what you've done is actually build a service that makes sure that you can distribute,
yes,
very high quality material, condense it down, bring it back. For the audience, it seems like everything's coming in, but you've developed it in a way that it can be done even if you don't have the fastest connections, right?
Yeah, correct. It's just very low bit rate, and it's highly scalable. And I think what we've done is, it's interesting because all these talks so far have been pretty much about taking models and making them into a virtual world and bringing them to people, to the real world, basically. And I think this is the reverse, and we need both in the metaverse. Is we're taking the real world and bringing them into a virtual environment. We saw a virtual skybox, right? Yeah. So we're bringing the virtual world into the real world back into the virtual world in the highest possible quality. And I'm sure, and I was just discussing this before the session, right? These headsets are still clumsy, they're big. The cameras, they still have too low resolution. The headsets, the resolution still isn't there yet, but it's all growing. And it's amazing about the speed at which these things are growing and evolving, and also the amount of money that's being invested by companies like Apple and Meta. I have to get used to saying
Microsoft
Meta. It's just mind-boggling. Yeah. So this will all come. Yeah. And I was also having this discussion, I think it was with Marco, about, so what headsets do you believe in? Is it like the HoloLens, or is it like the Quest? There's no doubt that there's going to be one headset that's going to be light, and it's going to be easy to wear, and it's going to do both. And maybe it's Apple's headset. It's gonna be able to bring the virtual world into the real world, and it's going to be able to bring the real world into a place where you're not at that point in time. So it's all going to happen. It's easily predictable, and it's also scary, because if you talk about bubbles, Facebook has, and I still call them Facebook, has created this kind of scary world in which people are communicate.
No. We'll have lots more discussions this afternoon.
But just imagine what this is if everything becomes virtual, and you have Natasha's models, and you can drive them to say what you want them to say. It's pretty scary stuff. But there's sessions this afternoon.
Yeah, and yesterday and the day before, and Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Now these are big topics. But if we bring it back, and we almost have to round up. We're already running a few minutes late. So there's tech coming from the media and entertainment industry that's directly relevant for other industries as well. But the media and entertainment industry are such an interesting driver, because there's mass audiences involved. So there's also a lot of energy and creativity and money involved as well. If you look at this and you think like...
About that?
But 1 second. If you look at this and think, okay, how will we move ahead? I mean, what needs to happen? And maybe we can have our virtual audience on screen as well. And a last question from the audience as well. But the big question right now is, what needs to happen? Okay, no new questions there. If you have questions, online audience, now is the time. And I'm also checking the audience here, because as said, we need to wrap this up.
There's a question over here.
Okay,
from the gentleman.
Let's have the question first, and then we'll bring it back to the panel for conclusions. Yes.
So, while I would hope that for all of these companies, and in particular former colleague Rob, some of these big tech companies sweep in and pay those millions of dollars and take them over. At the same time, this is the type of companies we need to have and innovate in the Netherlands. So my question to you, on the one hand, what do you think is necessary for a next generation of creatives, technologists, and all of that to be able to build the companies, the type of companies that you represent? And at the same time, what would you need to remain in the Netherlands and innovate here so that we can continue to build our technology position and our content position?
Okay, so that's the question. What needs to happen for all three of you? And then we have to round up, because also to the online audience, there's online workshops coming up as well. So there you go. First, one last answer.
Well, first, it was incredibly difficult to get funding, which would have been very, very much easier in the US, I'm sure. I think the climate is changing a little bit, but this has been a nightmare. And now that we have some funding and some traction, it's incredibly difficult to get good people. Really, really hard. So good engineers, they always go to big companies.
Booking.com. Booking.com
Sorry?
Second biggest employer in Amsterdam is Booking.com. All the tech guys are, and they pay so well as well. So
it's
very
almost
hard
impossible to compete with them without blowing your whole budget. So yes, that's a real issue.
Facebook will come for the next 10,000.
Meta will come for the rest. Well. Yes, gobble them up.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a question on the other side.
Oh, we're rounding up, Benjamin. Natasha, answer from you.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Rob. When I wanted to start this, I actually didn't want to start a volumetric business. I just wanted to have that technology available in the Netherlands, and nobody else was doing it. So in the end, I was, as we call it in Dutch, gekke Henkie. And I started working on this. But it took me over 2 years to get a really small, if you look at it internationally, get a really small budget together and people who believed in this technology. It was awful. Now we are there. Now, everybody starts seeing the technology and seeing, in this case, and I think that's for all immersive technology, seeing really is believing. And it's very hard to get it out to people. So, by the way, I really like what you're doing, getting it out to a lot of people. So we have to discuss how to get my volumetric images through your system. Just making a date.
That's it. And maybe at the next ASML meeting. Okay, what is your idea of what needs to happen?
Yeah, for us, it's staying in contact with different stakeholders in different industries and get the discussion going, because they have good ideas, we have good ideas, we can combine technology, and everybody's broadcast technology is like entertainment, but it's so more than that, and you can use it on different subjects and different business cases. So for us, it's getting the discussion going and getting in touch with everybody.
All right, I know somebody else wants to ask a question, but we actually had conclusions. So is it a very short question?
Hi, I'll try to be very short. It's a question to the child media, because I hear a lot talking about the industry and technology, but what about arts? What about the creators, the content? And I just wondered, are you only interested in these kind of mass events, or you would be interested in acquiring films, VR films? Venice Festival, Cannes, also United States, who's seen the festivals.
Okay,
great.
Sorry, I have to wrap it up here. We have to wrap it up. We have a whole day about the arts on Wednesday, looking at Benjamin, that's correct. And we actually also discussed a lot of the art. It's a super interesting topic, but let's not dive into it right now, right here. I think the creativity, I was trained in art school, surprisingly. I think the creativity that comes from the arts at the moment, and later this afternoon we'll have something about NFTs and what's going on in that space.
But the answer is yes, we're also interested. It's a short answer.
Good, all right, we do yes. Thank you to the panel. Thank you to ClickNL for bringing these industries together. There's other industries out there that need to talk to each other. This afternoon, Ecaries will talk about a European-wide constellation of XR companies. So I hope to see you back in half an hour, 25 minutes. Thank you so much.